I'm 73 years old. I woke up on a Tuesday morning about 3 months ago, and before my feet even touched the floor, the muscle in my right calf locked up so hard I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from waking up Linda. The pain shot straight up from my ankle to the back of my knee. My leg felt like it had been turned to stone. I sat there on the edge of the bed in the dark, rubbing my leg with my thumb, waiting for the muscle to release and thinking about how I used to spend 12 hours a day on my feet at the warehouse without a single twitch. Now I was cramping up just trying to get out of bed. When the pain finally faded into a dull ache, I walked to the bathroom holding onto the wall. That hesitation, that moment where you do not trust your own leg to hold your weight, is something you never really get used to. I looked in the mirror and told myself it was just part of getting older. That is the lie we all tell ourselves. We lose a step, our legs get a little thinner, our balance gets a little shaky, and we just nod our heads and accept it as the price of a long life. But the truth was, my legs were not just aging. They were being sabotaged by the very things I was doing to try and keep them strong. Linda noticed it before I did. We were walking back from the grocery store to the car, and I had to stop twice. I told her I was just shifting the bags, but she knows me better than that. She looked at my legs, then looked at me, and asked how long I had been dealing with that heavy feeling in my thighs. I brushed it off. Men my age are stubborn about things like that. We think if we ignore the weakness, it will not become real. But that night I started doing some reading. I read a report that tracked men in their late 60s and 70s. And it showed that over 60% of us deal with severe, unexplained leg cramps and a sudden drop in lower body strength. We blame our joints, we blame the weather, we blame the calendar. But there was a detail in that report that stopped me cold. I spent the next 3 weeks paying attention to every single thing I put into my body. I realized I was actively draining the strength out of my own legs every morning at the kitchen table. I narrowed it down to 3 specific things. 2 of them were vitamins I had been taking for years, convinced they were protecting my bones and muscles. The third was a change I had to make to undo the damage those pills had caused. And I am going to tell you exactly what they are, because what nobody tells you is that you can do everything right. You can stay active. You can try to eat well. But if you are putting the wrong fuel in a 73-year-old engine, the gears are going to lock up. The third thing on this list is the one that actually brought the feeling back to my legs, but we need to talk about the mistakes first. The first thing I had to throw in the trash was something I bought at the pharmacy 5 years ago and never stopped taking. Calcium supplements. I started taking high-dose calcium because I figured old bones needed more material. It made sense in my head. At the warehouse, if a shelf was weak, you reinforced it with more steel. I thought my body worked the same way. Every morning I swallowed a massive dose of isolated calcium, thinking I was building armor for my legs. My daughter Megan was the one who caught it. She is an occupational therapist. She sees seniors every day who are losing their mobility. She was over at the house for a Sunday dinner, saw the bottle on the counter next to my coffee cup, and asked how long I had been taking them. When I told her, she just shook her head. She explained what happens when you dump high amounts of isolated calcium into an older body without the right balance of other minerals to guide it. The body does not know where to put it. It does not go to the bones. It settles in the soft tissues. It settles in the arteries. It settles in the muscles. She told me about a group of older men they tracked over a 5-year period. The men taking heavy isolated calcium supplements without the right cofactors had a massive increase in muscle stiffness, cramping, and poor circulation in their lower legs. The calcium was essentially turning their flexible muscle fibers rigid. When she said that, I pictured the concrete floors at the loading dock. If you pour concrete without laying down the rebar correctly, it does not make the floor stronger. It just makes it brittle. It cracks under pressure. That was exactly what my leg muscles felt like. Brittle, rigid, ready to snap. It made me think of a guy I used to work with named Thomas. Thomas is 76 now. A few years ago, he started complaining about his legs feeling like they were wrapped in tight bandages. He could not bend his knees properly, and his calves were constantly knotted up. He was taking the exact same calcium pills I was, trying to fix a problem he did not fully understand. His legs just kept getting weaker, and eventually he stopped taking his morning walks altogether because the cramps were too unpredictable. The moment I understood what that calcium was doing to my own muscles, I dumped the entire bottle into the garbage. That was the first step. The second thing was harder to let go of because you hear about it everywhere. Every time you turn on the television or open a magazine, someone is telling you to take high doses of vitamin D. So I did. I was taking a massive dose of synthetic vitamin D every single day. I thought I was doing my body a favor. I thought I was keeping my immune system strong and helping my bones. But I was missing a piece of the puzzle that almost cost me my independence. I was standing in the garage with my son Derek a few weeks later. We were looking at the engine of his old truck, talking about how a bad battery can ruin a perfectly good alternator because the system is always trying to overcompensate. It hit me that my body was doing the exact same thing. Taking all that vitamin D was forcing my body to pull calcium into my bloodstream. But to process all of that, the body requires magnesium. A lot of it. I found a paper from a university that looked at men over 65 who were taking high doses of vitamin D. It turned out that the high doses were completely draining their bodies of magnesium. And when an older body runs out of magnesium, the very first place it shows up is in the legs. The muscles cannot relax. The nerves start misfiring. The calves cramp up in the middle of the night. The thighs feel heavy and dead when you try to walk up a flight of stairs. I was giving my body the signal to build, but I was starving it of the one mineral it needed to actually make the muscles function smoothly. I had created a massive deficiency in my own body completely by accident. I was taking a pill to stay healthy, and it was actively robbing my legs of the fuel they needed to carry me around. The cramps I had that Tuesday morning were not because I was 73. They were because my muscles were screaming for magnesium, and I was giving them nothing but isolated calcium and synthetic vitamin D. My legs were basically running dry. But throwing those 2 bottles away was only half the job. Knowing what to stop doing is fine, but it does not put the strength back in your legs. It does not make the stairs look any less steep. I still had to figure out the third thing. I had to replace the bad habits with something that actually recognized what an older body needs. I'm going to tell you exactly what I changed. But the most important part of this is understanding that muscle does not just disappear overnight because you had a birthday. It leaves when you stop giving it a reason to stay, or when you poison the environment it lives in. I had poisoned the environment. I had to clean it up. I stopped taking the isolated vitamins and started focusing on the one thing my legs were actually begging for. Proper balanced hydration with real trace minerals, specifically magnesium glycinate and potassium. I did not buy another cheap multivitamin. I went looking for the raw materials. I started mixing a small amount of high-quality trace minerals into my water every single morning. I added magnesium glycinate before bed, the kind that actually absorbs into the muscle tissue instead of just passing through your system. The change was not immediate. It was not magic. The body takes time to forgive you for the mistakes you make. But about 2 weeks after I threw away the calcium and the heavy vitamin D, I noticed something. I was standing in the kitchen talking to Linda, and I realized I had been standing in one spot for 20 minutes without needing to shift my weight or lean against the counter. A few days later, I walked out to the driveway to get the paper. There is a slight incline at the end of our driveway. Usually I feel a tightness in my shins when I walk up it. That morning I just walked up. My legs felt quiet. That is the best word I have for it. For months my legs had been loud. They ached. They cramped. They felt heavy. They demanded my attention every time I tried to move. Now they were just quiet. They were doing their job. When you get to be my age, the things that matter most are not complicated. I want to be able to carry a bag of soil into the backyard without wondering if my knees are going to buckle. I want to be able to sit on the floor with my 4 grandchildren and know that I can get back up without needing someone to pull my arm. I want to walk down the hallway in the dark without keeping my hand on the wall just in case my leg decides to give out. I had to learn the hard way that sometimes the things we are told will save us are the very things pushing us closer to the edge. Those 2 vitamins were quietly stripping the resilience right out of my legs. Once I stopped forcing them into my system and gave my body the simple, raw minerals it was actually asking for, the strength started to return. I'm going to be out in the yard later today, cleaning out the gutters before the rain starts. My legs are going to carry me up that ladder, and they are going to hold me steady while I work. You do not have to live with legs that feel like they are giving up on you. Sometimes you just have to look at what you are putting in the engine and have the courage to throw the bad oil away. If you are dealing with cramps or weakness or that heavy feeling that makes you want to stay in the chair, take a hard look at your kitchen counter. You might be doing exactly what I was doing. I am going to get my boots on and head outside. I appreciate you sitting here and listening to an old man talk about his mistakes. Take care of your legs. I will be right here if you want to talk again.